Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin with a story because stories remind us of what it means to be human. I once met a woman who seemed to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders, yet her smile lit up every room she entered. One day, as we shared a quiet conversation, she said something that stayed with me. There are pieces of me no one gets to touch, not even the people I love most. At first, it struck me as a little sad, but as I thought more about it, I realized how profoundly wise it was. Because the truth is, boundaries are not barriers, they are an act of love. They protect what's sacred within us and allow us to show up fully in our relationships. Today, I want to talk about why a woman must always hide certain things from a man, not because of fear, but because of love. Not to create distance, but to ensure closeness with integrity. Let's start by rethinking the word hiding often. We equate hiding with secrecy, mistrust, or deception. It conjures images of something forbidden, something dark. But there's another side to hiding, one rooted in wisdom and self-preservation. Hiding, when done intentionally, can be a profound act of self-love. And at the heart of this lies the concept of boundaries. A boundary is not a wall, it's a frame. It doesn't shut people out, it protects what's inside. Think about the delicate petals of a flower. The outer leaves aren't there to hide the bloom, but to shield it from harsh winds and heavy rain. Without those protective layers, the flower could never fully blossom. In the same way, boundaries are the layers we build to protect our most vulnerable selves. They allow us to flourish because they ensure we are not overexposed to harm, judgment, or exploitation. But what does this look like in a relationship? When we talk about boundaries, we're really talking about the way we define who we are and how we allow others to interact with us. Boundaries are not about creating barriers, they are about creating a sense of clarity, what we are willing to share, when, and with whom. They remind us that while love requires openness, it doesn't demand complete exposure all at once. Think about a story. Every great story has pacing. Imagine if a book spilled its deepest secrets in the first chapter. Where would the mystery go? Where would the joy of discovery come from? The same is true for relationships. When we guard certain parts of ourselves until the time is right, we allow the relationship to unfold naturally, like a story that's worth reading. Boundaries also teach us something vital about trust. Trust is not a gift, it's a process. It's built incrementally through moments of vulnerability that are shared and honored. But to trust someone, we must first trust ourselves. That's where boundaries come in. They are a signal to ourselves and others that we value what's inside us, that we are worth protecting. Let me share an example. Imagine you have a priceless antique vase. You wouldn't leave it in the middle of a crowded room where it could be knocked over or damaged. Not because you don't trust the people in the room, but because you understand the vase's value. You'd place it somewhere safe, somewhere it could be admired but not recklessly handled. The same principle applies to our inner lives. Our hopes, dreams, fears, and insecurities are like that vase. They are delicate, precious, and often irreplaceable. By establishing boundaries, we create a safe space for these parts of ourselves to exist. And when we choose to share them, we do so with the confidence that they will be handled with care. Boundaries also have a profound impact on how we see ourselves. They are an affirmation of our worth. To set a boundary is to say, I deserve to be treated with respect. My time, energy, and emotions are valuable, and I won't give them away freely to anyone who asks. This isn't selfishness, it's self-respect. And yet, for many women, setting boundaries feels uncomfortable. Society often tells us that being accommodating and agreeable is more important than protecting our inner lives. We're praised for saying yes and criticized for saying yes. But the truth is, saying no can be one of the most loving things we do, not just for ourselves, but for the people we care about. Think about it this way: when you overextend yourself, when you share too much too soon, or when you let someone take more from you than you can give, what happens? Resentment builds, frustration grows. And eventually the relationship suffers. Boundaries, far from being selfish, are the very thing that allows love to flourish without resentment or imbalance. But boundaries are not just about what you don't share, they're also about what you do share and when. There's a rhythm to intimacy. It doesn't happen all at once, it's built over time. By setting boundaries, you create the space for that rhythm to develop naturally. You give yourself and your partner the chance to grow together without rushing or forcing a connection. And let's not forget that boundaries are not static. They evolve as relationships evolve. What you choose to hide today may be something you reveal tomorrow once trust has deepened and the relationship has proven itself strong enough to hold it. Boundaries are fluid, adapting to the unique dynamics of each relationship. But here's the key: boundaries are not just for the benefit of the other person. They are for you. They are a reminder that your inner life is your sanctuary, a place that only you can govern. When you establish boundaries, you're not only protecting yourself from harm, you're also creating the conditions for your truest self to emerge. This is especially important in romantic relationships. There's a cultural myth that love means giving all of yourself to another person. But that's not love, that's erasure. Real love recognizes the value of what's hidden. It doesn't demand access to every corner of your soul. Instead, it honors what you choose to share and respects what you choose to keep private. Boundaries then are not about withholding, they're about honoring. Honoring your worth, honoring your worth, honoring your growth, and honoring the time it takes to build something real, something lasting. When you embrace the power of boundaries, you're not just protecting yourself, you're creating the conditions for a deeper, more authentic connection. In today's world, we often hear that honesty and transparency are the bedrock of any good relationship. And while that's true, there's a nuance that's often overlooked: the importance of preserving mystery. This doesn't mean being secretive or dishonest. It means understanding that some aspects of who we are don't need to be revealed all at once. Preserving mystery is not about withholding, it's about cultivating curiosity, maintaining individuality, and creating a rhythm in how we share ourselves with others. Mystery often gets a bad reputation. In a culture that celebrates oversharing and immediate connection, mystery can feel like a relic of the past. But if we think deeply about it, mystery is what keeps relationships alive and dynamic. It's what draws people closer, not because everything is readily available, but because there's something left to discover. Mystery is the quiet whisper of potential, the space where curiosity and respect grow. Think about a beautifully wrapped gift. The wrapping doesn't make the gift inside any less valuable. In fact, it enhances the experience. It builds anticipation, creating a moment of wonder as the gift is slowly unwrapped. The same is true for relationships. When we allow others to uncover pieces of us gradually, we transform our connections into something rich, textured, and meaningful. And mystery in relationships isn't about being distant or aloof, it's about creating a sense of balance. It's about recognizing that intimacy isn't built by laying everything bare at once, but by pacing how we reveal our inner selves. When we preserve a little mystery, we allow our partner to remain curious, to keep asking questions, and to feel invested in the ongoing journey of getting to know us. One of the key aspects of preserving mystery is recognizing the difference between being open and being overexposed. In our rush to connect, we often feel pressured to share everything: the good, the bad, and the messy right away. But there's a risk in this. When we overshare too soon, we can overwhelm the other person and even diminish the significance of what we're sharing. Let's take an example. Imagine meeting someone for the first time and immediately diving into your deepest fears, insecurities, or life struggles. While this might feel like vulnerability, it can also feel unbalanced. True vulnerability, the kind that builds trust and connection, comes with discernment. It involves understanding not just what to share, but when to share it. Mystery is also about honoring the process of discovery. In the beginning stages of a relationship, there's a natural rhythm to getting to know one another. You start with surface level details, your favorite foods, movies, or hobbies, and then over time you delve deeper. Preserving mystery means respecting this rhythm. It's about allowing the relationship to unfold naturally without rushing to reveal every detail of who you are. This doesn't mean hiding your true self or pretending to be someone you're not. Instead, it's about recognizing that relationships, like people, need room to breathe. When you share everything all at once, you leave little space for growth. But when you reveal yourself gradually, you create an ongoing sense of discovery, one that keeps the relationship vibrant and alive. Another crucial aspect of preserving mystery is protecting your individuality. It's easy to lose yourself in a relationship, especially when you're deeply in love or eager to connect. But preserving mystery reminds you that you are not just half of a couple, you are a whole person with your own thoughts, dreams, and experiences. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are they have a certain depth to them, a quality that makes you want to know more. That depth doesn't come from revealing everything, it comes from holding something back. It's the spark of mystery that keeps you curious, that draws you in, and that makes the relationship dynamic rather than static. Preserving mystery also strengthens respect. When you keep certain aspects of yourself private, at least for a time, you send a powerful message that your inner world is valuable and not something to be rushed or taken for granted. You teach others to approach you with care and reverence rather than entitlement. And it's not just about the other person. Preserving mystery also benefits you. It gives you time to reflect on what parts of yourself you're ready to share and what parts you'd rather keep private. It allows you to move at your own pace, ensuring that when you do open up, it feels authentic and meaningful. Mystery doesn't mean playing games or withholding affection. It doesn't mean being intentionally vague or evasive. Instead, it's about recognizing that not everything needs to be said, shown, or explained right away. It's about creating a sense of anticipation and excitement, of leaving space for curiosity and wonder. In long-term relationships, preserving mystery becomes even more important. Over time, it's easy to fall into routines and assume we already know everything about our partner. But the truth is, people are always growing, always changing. Preserving mystery in a long-term relationship means staying curious. It means recognizing that there are always new layers to uncover, even after years together. So how do we preserve mystery without creating distance? It starts with self-awareness. Take time to reflect on your boundaries, your values, and the parts of yourself that you want to keep sacred. Ask yourself, what do I want to share, and what do I want to hold close for now? Preserving mystery also means embracing the art of listening. When we truly listen to our partner, we create space for them to reveal their own mysteries. We show them that we value their depth, that we're invested in the ongoing process of getting to know them. Finally, preserving mystery requires patience. In a world that celebrates instant gratification, it can be hard to slow down and let things unfold naturally. But the most meaningful connections aren't built overnight. They're built over time through moments of curiosity, discovery, and respect. Preserving mystery is not about keeping secrets, it's about protecting what's sacred. It's about recognizing that the most beautiful connections are the ones that allow space for both intimacy and individuality. When we preserve a little mystery, we honor not just our relationships, but also ourselves. In our society, the idea of self-worth is often tied to external validation. We're conditioned from a young age to seek approval from parents, teachers, peers, and as we grow older, romantic partners. Compliments, applause, and recognition feel good because they affirm that we're enough, that we belong, and that we're valued. But what happens when we rely too heavily on these external sources of validation? What happens when our sense of self-worth is no longer rooted in who we are, but in how others perceive us? For many women, this dynamic becomes particularly pronounced in relationships with men. Cultural narratives often reinforce the idea that a woman's value is tied to how desirable, agreeable, or supportive she is perceived to be. In this context, it's easy to fall into the trap of measuring self-worth based on a man's approval. But the truth is, when we hand over the responsibility of defining our worth to someone else, we lose the ability to truly see ourselves. Self-worth that depends on validation is fragile. It's like building a house on shifting sand. If a man compliments your appearance, you feel beautiful. If he praises your intelligence, you feel smart. But what happens when the compliments stop, or worse, when the feedback turns negative? If your sense of self is tied to his words, his opinions, or his attention, then you've given him the power to shape your reality. This isn't to say that validation is inherently bad. It's natural to feel good when someone notices your strengths or expresses admiration. But the key is to see validation as a bonus, not a necessity. It's like icing on a cake. It enhances what's already there, but isn't the foundation. The real work is in cultivating a sense of self-worth that exists independently of anyone else's approval. The first step in breaking free from the need for validation is recognizing the difference between worth and performance. Your worth is intrinsic, it's the fact of your existence. You are valuable simply because you are here, because you are human, because you have a unique combination of strengths, experiences, and perspectives. Performance, on the other hand, is about what you do. It's about achievements, accomplishments, and the roles you play. When self-worth is tied to validation, it often becomes confused with performance. You might feel like you need to prove your value by being the perfect girlfriend, the smartest woman in the room, or the most supportive partner. But here's the truth: your worth is not something you earn. It's something you already possess. Consider the example of a diamond. Its value doesn't change based on who is looking at it or how it's displayed. It doesn't need to be polished every day to remain precious. The same is true for you. Whether or not someone recognizes your worth, it remains intact. However, the world doesn't always reinforce this message. Instead, it often tells women that they need to earn love, respect, and attention. Social media, for instance, can amplify these insecurities. The number of likes, comments, or messages becomes a measure of worth in a way that's both addictive and harmful. In relationships, the need for validation can manifest in subtle ways. You might find yourself over-explaining your feelings, hoping to be understood. You might suppress your needs, fearing they'll be seen as too much. You might even seek constant reassurance: do you still love me? Do I look good in this? Are you happy with me? While these questions come from a place of vulnerability, they can also signal an over-reliance on external feedback to feel secure. So how do you build self-worth beyond validation? It begins with self-acceptance. This means embracing yourself fully, the good, the messy, and everything in between. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, I am enough even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. Self-acceptance also means owning your insecurities. Everyone has them, they're part of being human. But instead of seeking someone else to fix or validate those insecurities, the goal is to work through them on your own terms. Therapy, journaling, mindfulness, and personal growth are powerful tools for this journey. Another important step is setting boundaries. When you prioritize external validation, it's easy to let others dictate your choices. You might say yes when you mean no, or sacrifice your needs to please someone else. But when you value yourself independently, you're more likely to honor your boundaries. You recognize that it's not selfish to say, this doesn't work for me, it's an act of self-respect. Cultivating self-worth also involves celebrating your own wins. Instead of waiting for someone else to notice your achievements, take a moment to appreciate them yourself. Whether it's finishing a project, overcoming a fear, or simply making it through a tough day, give yourself credit. This practice reinforces the idea that your validation matters just as much, if not more, than anyone else's. It's also crucial to surround yourself with people who uplift you. Validation may feel intoxicating when it comes from a romantic partner, but it's even more powerful when it comes from within a community of people who see and value you for who you are. Friends, mentors, and loved ones who encourage your growth and authenticity can serve as mirrors, reflecting your worth back to you in ways that don't feel conditional. Lastly, self-worth beyond validation is about redefining love. Love isn't about being chosen, it's about mutual recognition, respect, and care. When you know your worth, you don't settle for someone who only values parts of you. You hold out for someone who sees the whole picture: your strength, your vulnerabilities, and your uniqueness, and honors it. Building self-worth beyond validation isn't a one-time achievement, it's a lifelong practice. There will be moments when doubt creeps in, when the desire for external approval feels overwhelming. But with each step you take towards self-acceptance and self-respect, you reclaim your power. You remind yourself that your worth doesn't come from anyone else, it comes from you. At first glance, vulnerability and strength seem like opposites. Strength is often associated with resilience, toughness, and the ability to withstand challenges without breaking. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is frequently linked to openness, exposure, and the risk of getting hurt. But the truth is, these two qualities are not only connected, they depend on each other. In their intersection lies the profound truth about what it means to be human: the courage to show up as our authentic selves, and the strength to carry the weight of our imperfections. For much of our lives, we're taught that vulnerability is a weakness. We hear phrases like, don't let them see you cry, or keep a stiff upper lip. In relationships, workplaces, and even friendships, vulnerability is sometimes viewed as a liability, a crack in the armor. We fear that if we let others see our struggles, they might judge us, reject us, or exploit our openness. But vulnerability isn't about weakness. In fact, it takes incredible courage to be vulnerable. It requires us to lower our defenses and risk being truly seen. This is why vulnerability is often the birthplace of connection. When we are vulnerable, we invite others into our lives, not just the polished, curated parts, but the raw and real ones too. Think about the moments that have brought you closest to someone else. Were they built on perfection and invulnerability? Or were they built on shared truths, on moments when you or the other person said, I'm struggling or I don't have it all figured out? It's in these moments that connection deepens because they remind us we're not alone. Strength in this context is what allows us to embrace vulnerability. It's the internal fortitude that gives us the confidence to say, this is who I am, even when we're unsure of how it will be received. Strength isn't about avoiding pain or discomfort. It's about facing it with honesty and courage. It's about standing in the uncertainty and knowing that even if things don't go the way we hope, we'll be okay. To truly understand the intersection of vulnerability and strength, let's consider some real-life scenarios. Imagine someone stepping onto a stage to deliver a speech, their hands trembling slightly as they begin to speak. They could have declined the invitation, stayed in their comfort zone, and avoided the risk of failure. But by showing up, by allowing themselves to feel nervous and exposed, they demonstrate both vulnerability and strength. Their willingness to be seen, even in an imperfect state, is what makes their act powerful. In relationships, vulnerability often looks like expressing feelings that make us feel exposed, saying, I love you first, admitting I'm hurt, or asking, can we talk about this? These moments carry risk. There's always the possibility that the other person won't respond the way we hope. But they also carry the potential for deeper understanding and intimacy. Strength is what allows us to take that risk. It's the inner assurance that no matter the outcome, we have the resilience to move forward. Vulnerability also plays a crucial role in leadership. The most effective leaders are not the ones who pretend to have all the answers or never admit to making mistakes. They are the ones who say, I don't know, but I'm committed to figuring it out, or I got it wrong. And here's how I'll do better. This kind of openness doesn't undermine their authority, it enhances it. It builds trust because it shows they are willing to be real. Strength, in this case, is the ability to lead with integrity, even when it means admitting imperfections. One of the greatest misconceptions about vulnerability is that it leaves us powerless. In reality, vulnerability is one of the most powerful things we can embrace. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we are not giving away our strength, we are amplifying it. We are showing that we are strong enough to face life without the constant need to protect or perfect ourselves. This doesn't mean vulnerability comes without challenges. It's not easy to let our guard down, especially in a world that often rewards invulnerability. The fear of rejection, judgment, or failure can feel overwhelming. But avoiding vulnerability doesn't shield us from these outcomes. It simply robs us of the chance to experience genuine connection, growth, and self-discovery. At the heart of vulnerability and strength is the idea of authenticity. When we're authentic, we stop trying to be what we think others want us to be and start embracing who we truly are. This authenticity is magnetic. It draws people toward us because it creates a space where they too can be real. But authenticity requires both vulnerability and strength. Vulnerability to admit our flaws and fears. Strength to stand by them without shame. It's a delicate balance, one that gets easier with practice. One of the most profound aspects of the intersection of vulnerability and strength is its ability to inspire others. When we show up as our full, imperfect selves, we give others permission to do the same. Our willingness to be vulnerable becomes a mirror that reflects their courage back to them. Our strength becomes a reminder that it's okay to take risks, to stumble, and to keep going. Finally, we must recognize that vulnerability and strength are not static traits, they're practices. There will be days when it feels easier to keep our walls up and days when we feel brave enough to let them down. Both are part of the journey. At its core, the intersection of vulnerability and strength is about embracing the fullness of life. It's about daring to take risks, to love deeply, to admit mistakes, and to grow from them. It's about finding the courage to stand in our truth, even when it feels uncomfortable. When we allow these two qualities to coexist, we unlock a powerful way of living that honors both our humanity and our resilience. Connection is one of the deepest human desires. We long to be seen, heard, and understood, and relationships are often where we seek to fulfill that need. But not all connections are created equal. Some relationships leave us feeling drained, diminished, or dependent, while others inspire us, energize us, and strengthen our sense of self. The difference often lies in the foundation of the connection, whether it is rooted in empowerment or dependency. Empowered connection is about cultivating relationships that enhance your individuality rather than erode it. It's about showing up as your whole authentic self and encouraging others to do the same. This kind of connection is not just about being together, it's about growing together in a way that honors both the relationship and the people in it. At the heart of empowered connection is mutual respect. When respect forms the cornerstone of a relationship, it creates a space where both people can thrive. It means valuing each other's autonomy and individuality, even as you build a shared bond. Respect allows for healthy boundaries, honest communication, and the freedom to express yourself without fear of judgment. In this way, respect is both a safeguard and an amplifier of connection. It protects what's sacred and strengthens what's possible. Empowered connection is also rooted in vulnerability. True connection doesn't come from hiding who we are or pretending to be perfect. It comes from showing up authentically, flaws and all. Vulnerability is what allows two people to see and understand each other on a deeper level. But in an empowered connection, vulnerability isn't about giving away your power or becoming dependent on someone else for validation. Instead, it's about sharing your truth from a place of strength. For example, consider the difference between saying, "I need you to make me happy," and saying, "I feel happiest when we share meaningful moments together." The first statement shifts the responsibility for your emotions onto someone else, creating a dynamic of dependency. The second acknowledges your feelings without sacrificing your autonomy. This subtle difference illustrates the balance of vulnerability and self-empowerment that defines an empowered connection. Communication plays a pivotal role in creating empowered relationships. But communication in this context goes beyond simply expressing your needs and listening to your partners. It requires intention and mindfulness. Empowered communication is clear, compassionate, and constructive. It's about speaking your truth in a way that invites understanding rather than defensiveness, and listening with the same level of openness and respect you hope to receive. In an empowered connection, disagreements and challenges aren't seen as threats, but as opportunities for growth. Conflict is inevitable in any relationship, but it doesn't have to be destructive. When both people approach conflict with a willingness to understand and a commitment to the relationship's well-being, it becomes a chance to deepen the connection rather than weaken it. Another essential element of empowered connection is balance. Healthy relationships are partnerships, not hierarchies. Both people bring something unique to the table, and both deserve to feel seen and valued. Balance doesn't mean keeping score or dividing everything equally. It means creating a dynamic where both individuals feel supported and appreciated in ways that work for them. Empowered connection also requires a strong foundation of self-worth. It's hard to build a healthy relationship if you don't believe you're worthy of one. When you have a strong sense of self-worth, you're less likely to settle for relationships that diminish you or compromise your values. Instead, you're more likely to seek out and nurture connections that align with who you are and who you want to become. Self-worth is also what allows you to set and maintain boundaries in your relationships. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges that define how we interact with others in a way that honors our needs and values. In an empowered connection, boundaries are not seen as barriers to intimacy, but as essential tools for fostering trust and respect. Empowered connection is not about dependency, but interdependence. In a dependent relationship, one person relies on the other for their sense of identity, worth, or happiness. This dynamic can lead to resentment, control, or an unhealthy loss of self. In an interdependent relationship, however, both people maintain their individuality while supporting and uplifting each other. Interdependence recognizes that while we may not need someone to complete us, we can choose to walk alongside them as equals. This kind of connection doesn't happen by chance. It requires intention and effort. It means consistently showing up for the relationship while also showing up for yourself. It means celebrating your partner's growth and successes without feeling threatened, just as you hope they will celebrate yours. Empowered connection also embraces the idea of mutual accountability. In a healthy relationship, both people take responsibility for their actions, emotions, and contributions to the dynamic. This means acknowledging when you've made a mistake, apologizing when necessary, and committing to do better moving forward. It also means holding each other accountable in a way that is constructive rather than critical. Empowered connection is not without its challenges. It requires patience, courage, and a willingness to do the hard work of introspection. It's easier to fall into patterns of dependency or control than it is to cultivate a relationship based on mutual respect and empowerment. But the rewards of empowered connection are worth the effort. When you nurture empowered relationships, you create a space where both people feel free to be themselves. You build a bond that is resilient in the face of challenges because it is grounded in trust and respect. And most importantly, you create a connection that doesn't just sustain you, it inspires you to grow into the fullest, most authentic version of yourself. And at the heart of every meaningful relationship is a balance between honoring who we are as individuals and embracing the connections that enrich our lives. Through vulnerability, we find the courage to be seen, and through strength, we stand firm in our authenticity. Empowered connection challenges us to show up fully, to set boundaries that honor our worth, and to create bonds rooted in respect, mutuality, and growth. When we lean into these truths, when we allow ourselves to embrace mystery, protect our self-worth, and navigate relationships with courage and intention, we open the door to deeper connection, greater resilience, and a life that reflects our truest selves. The journey is not without risk or effort, but the rewards of living and loving from a place of empowerment are transformative, not just for us, but for every connection we nurture along the way.